Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio today, I have a lovely young woman who I just recently met. And she is a woman of God who is inspiring and encouraging, looking to share how good God has been in her life and wanting to encourage others in the same way. And she's taken some time out of her busy schedule to join us to share a little bit about her journey and some adversities and challenges that she's worked her way through, just leaning into God and His favor and His covering and His protection. So I'm so thankful that she's taking this time out to be with us today. So without any further delay, let me introduce to you Miss Tyron. Thank you for being
Hi.
with us today.
Yes,
I'm s-
excited to be with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. When we had a chance to connect, like I said recently, through a group that we're involved in, and you expressed an interest in being on the show, and I checked out a little bit about you. I was like, oh, she's perfect fit for what we're talking about here. So that was an easy call to make to connect with you. So I'm glad you were able to do so, and thank you for being here today. So before we kind of jump into the show, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself. You know what you do, where you're from, and that kind of thing. So if you would, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
And again, my name is Tauren, and I am a life coach, and I work in the medical field. I've been in the medical
Hmm.
field for over about 10 years. I reside in Louisiana. I'm in the boot in the South. Pretty much that's all to me for as what I do and where I'm from.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. All right. So we're gonna build on that. So because we want to know a little bit more about you, and the best way to start, when anytime we're talking about our life journeys and our challenges and things that we experience, you can't really tell the full scope of the story without talking about where it all begins. And so that's
Right.
exactly what we're gonna do right now. So what I would like for you to do, if you would, is to kind of think back to your childhood, and if you would, just kind of share with us what was it like for you growing up in Louisiana, fond memories that you might have, as well as if there was any specific challenges that come to mind that you'd like to share that you had to work through. Please let us know what it's like. Everybody's not been in Louisiana before, know what that life
Oh
is like.
gosh.
So whatever you'd like to share, we'd love to hear more about what that was like growing up for you.
So what can I say? Louisiana, we know it's the South. We know it's the home of the Cajun food, New Orleans, whatever. But for me as a child, I grew up in a small town in Louisiana. So it was like a country town, probably a population of maybe 1,200 people. So my childhood, I grew up in, the country lifestyle. As a kid, I climbed trees. I ran around with no shoes on until, you know, I started liking boys about 16, 17. But I ran around with no shoes on. And so for when I think about my childhood, I think about those moments. I can't say that I really had any bad memories from my childhood. I really truly think I thank God that I don't have any just bad memories. Besides maybe school, high school, I was an introvert. So being an introvert, you kind of like off to yourself. So you don't really fit in with everybody. So I can think of times of that. But first, my childhood, I had a pretty good childhood. I had some very strict parents who sent me to church 7 days a week.
Mm.
Um, and I grew up in a Kojic church. Um, Pretty much that's wraps up my childhood. I didn't really much had. I had a good childhood. I'm the oldest of three, so being a big sister, I got a chance to boss the other siblings around, and it was great for me.
Awesome, awesome. That is pretty interesting. And again, like you said, you grew up obviously in a very faith-based family. You're in church seven
Yes.
days a week, and kids who grow up like that, you hear a variety of different experiences. Some good, some not so good. What would you say to that? I guess being in church so much, so consistently like that throughout your childhood. What was that like for you?
Ah, at the time, it was a lot to me. Growing up in a,
Hmm.
especially a Kojic church,
Hmm.
uh, you deal with certain things you can wear and what you can do, what you can't do, and it was a lot. I didn't. So when I got to the age I was able to go off to college or get grown,
Sorry, sounds like your mic went out momentarily. Unmute yourself. There you go.
I'm
Yep.
sorry.
No, you're good.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't know it went out. But yeah, I grew up in that type of atmosphere. You would think that you have this faith with God, but at that time, I felt like I just did it because I was told to. It was the
Mm-hmm.
thing to do. So I kind of, when I got out of high school, went off to college, or began my life, I kind of got away from it because it was something that I wanted to know God. When with my relationship, and not through my grandmothers or my parents or anything like that. So yeah, the church was. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty tough growing up in a church scene like that, and a society that's always pulling for you to do other things. Like, you can't do this, you can't do that. So it was rough.
Okay, okay, and it's interesting that you point that out because I oftentimes hear people say that about their experience when they've grown up in the church. People automatically assume, well, you immediately at a very early age had a relationship with God, but
I
that's
didn't.
not necessarily always the case. Just because, like I said, it depends upon why was I there. Was I there, in other words, like by force, so to speak, because my parents made me go, and did that overshadow me really having a chance to make that connection? So it's always, of course, good to hear that even as you had a chance to get older, you
Yeah.
began to transition to saying, "I want to have that relationship for myself,"
Now, it
and
didn't
it's
happen
just,
right then.
well, and I understand that. I think for a lot of people it doesn't, but it's like it's just that transitional moment where you realize, okay, how can I get connected back to it, and which is the whole thing of what we're talking about today, because a lot of times there's something that happens in between that brings us
Yeah.
back to God and
Yeah.
to that relationship. So, and one other quick thing I wanted to ask you before we move forward here is, of course, you made mention about being an introvert. So I find it interesting that you speak to being an introvert, yet at the top of the show you talked about you are a life coach. So it's like you kind of don't associate introvert with life coach. So if you recall, what was that turning point where you kind of broke out a little bit of the introvert side to where you could be able to someday do a job like life coaching? Where was that break in the personality, if you will, if you remember? When did that kind of start to happen for you?
Oh my goodness. When I tell you, it probably didn't happen till I got to my 30s.
Okay.
Sad to say. And I'm still, to a certain extent, I'm still a life coach.
Hmm.
I mean, still an introvert. So I basically grew up as I was a loner. So it was
Hmm.
easy. It was easy to stay in that place and um, be an introvert. But when I got out into the world,
Hmm.
and when I got into the world and had to go into jobs and to network and those type of things, it became to where I had to start trying to come out of that place. But
Hmm.
honestly, it didn't truly, I truly didn't come out of it. I don't think I'm out of it today. And it's
And
crazy. I don't think I'm out of it. I'm still, but I try to help people to become more comfortable with
hmm.
themselves, because that is what helped me to start loving myself and to see me as God sees me. And so I think
That's
that was,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm always intrigued by that because I considered myself an introvert growing up. Yes, and and
Oh,
people who know me now, a lot of times they'll see a certain side of me and they're like, no way. If somebody says, oh, I used to be quiet and real, shy, and like, no, no, they think I'm lying, but it's like, well, no,
I know,
and
right?
as you say, and as an introvert, what you just said is like, you never really stop being that introvert. It's just
No,
that you are able to sort of come out when you need to come out in
when I
terms of
need to.
personality, but
Exactly.
then once that moment is over, you go right back to being the sort of the loner, sort of the
Exactly.
observer of the room. I'm not really trying to be out there kind of thing, but I know how to do it if I need to do it.
Yes.
But sort of that turn it on,
Yes.
turn it off. So that's why I was building on that. Like when you said that, I was like, I totally relate to that because I've been through that.
Yes.
For me, college was sort of that first turning point where I sort of broke out of that shell a little bit more,
I
and
still
I
know.
haven't turned back since. And it's been something that I've had to build on. But that introvert part of me, that's never gone away.
Exactly.
And there's nothing negative about it. It's just some people are just built like that, and it's a good.
Mm,
It can be a negative to you if you don't, like I said, allow yourself to expand your horizons. But at the
yeah.
same time, it can also be a very good thing because introverts tend to, again, to be the observers of the room. We're paying
Yes.
we may not be saying much, but we're paying attention. And
Exactly, exactly.
we're checking out what's going on. We're sizing you up. We're filling you out.
Right.
And so we might have not said anything, but we already got you plugged before you come to us.
Yes.
So if you think you
True.
were getting ready to come to us a certain kind of way, you might get surprised when you arrive there because we might hit you with something that you didn't anticipate.
Right.
So I totally relate to that. So as we're progressing along through your journey of life, as we talked a little bit about earlier, there will come a point, obviously, where you know things aren't always going to be smooth going. You run into bumps in the road, things happen, situations occur, but there's certain events in life that just sort of stick out a little bit more than others.
Yeah.
Moments where you're just kind of like, I don't know about this. I'm pretty good at navigating my way through stuff, but this right here, this is a little heavy for me. I'm not coming up with the answers for this. I'm not understanding. I'm not processing this. I'm questioning, can I even get out of this thing, or am I stuck here forever, whatever that thing is? So my
Yeah.
question to you is, take us to a time in your life where you found yourself in such a situation where you felt like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get out of this, where you felt like maybe that this was sort of the end in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
whatever that situation made you feel like. You felt closed in, you felt hopeless, you felt like there was no way out. What was that situation like for you, and how did you navigate your way through it?
Oh, where do I start? So as I was saying earlier, my parents were very, they protected me, so I was sheltered.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went out into the world, I wasn't very good at it, you know. So the first boyfriend that I had happened to be, I was 18, he was like 27, he was older. And we started dating, and it started out good. And next thing I noticed he was tearing me down by saying little things, always saying negative things towards me. And I didn't, it's almost like I needed his validation. So I dealt with it. Like if he
Mm-hmm.
said, oh, you couldn't do this, I tried harder to do it. Not sure why I did it, but I did that. And he went from being um, mentally and emotionally abusive to where he started physically abusing me. And at the age, at 18 years old, you're not, I couldn't tell my parents because I was young. I thought that he loved me and he was going to change. I was taught if you pray about it, it's going to change, So I was praying like, God, I love this man, and I feel like we're supposed to be together, and I need for you to help us. Well, it seemed like the more I prayed, the more he hit on me. And I hid it for a long time from my parents because I didn't, my parents are old school too. My dad, he has a rifle. So I didn't want them to know, exactly what was going on in my life. So um, after, it took me maybe a year or so before I actually got out their relationship. I ended up, you know, my face being, he blackened my eyes several times, cracked my tooth. It was a lot of things that I went through at that age, and I was thinking like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know if I can survive this. Is this what life is like? I don't want to grow up then. Um, but to fast forward after that, I went on and I was like, God, and this is the thing about me and God relationship before I got to a real relationship with him. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of the time I talked to him when I needed him. Like
Mm.
it wasn't if I need him on a Wednesday, I talk to him Wednesday for it, but I ain't talked to him for the rest of the week. So I was like, God, I want a husband. I want to be married. And shortly after, I met a husband, got married. Um, and that marriage was horrible. It wasn't all horrible, but it was horrible. And I didn't think I was going to get out of it. But because of that marriage, that is the reason why I have a relationship with God today. I know God for real. But I really didn't think I was going to survive the abuse from my previous boyfriend. And then when I got married, my husband also was a narcissist. So God was the reason that I got out of it. It's my relationship with him. One night, I decided I was gonna go to take a shower, and I called this my bathroom ministry. I went in the bathroom and I was crying. I said, God, I can't do this no more. Like, I know my children need me. At this time, I had 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I can't do this no more. I know I asked you for a husband. I know I asked you for, the children, the house, the career, but I'm not happy. And this can't work. And so I laid on the floor in my bathroom, and I stayed there for over 4 hours. And the Holy Spirit just dropped on me. And it changed my life. Like when I came out that bathroom, I had a love for God, to a hunger to want to know Him. But before then, I didn't think I was gonna survive. I didn't even think I wanted to survive. My children had became the only reason why I wanted to live.
Mm.
So it got pretty bad, and so from at that point, I went through a divorce
Mm-hmm.
after like 2 years ago. Went through a divorce, and that was devastating to me because at that point I'm like, God, here we go again. Like, I didn't pray for this man. I didn't fast. I didn't know all. I mean, when he got ready to go to work, his boots were slippery because I didn't put all in his shoes to that I didn't pray, and it didn't happen. God didn't fix it. And so one night, after the divorce, I was mad at God. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people don't like to be transparent about their relationship with God. I was angry. I was angry. Here I was a praying wife. I was uh, I was a good daughter. I felt like a good mother. I did everything by the book, but yet here I am. I got to go through a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
and so he told me, he said, I've unctioned him to know me, but I can't cross over that line of making him. I didn't make you do it, and I'm not going to make him do it. And so I was angry. I went probably almost a year. I dropped out of church, which was the wrong thing. But I continued my relationship with God. I stayed having conversation with God sometimes, but I was angry because that was very hard for me to have to start over for 20 some years of being with someone. And here I go again. You think I was going to make it. And at this time, I'm starting back over like I did at the age of 18, 19 years old. I had to get a new place to stay. I had kids that one of my children was had just graduated from high school. Well, was in the 12th grade. The other was in 11th. And one had just graduated this time. And I'm like, oh God, I can't do this. Like, I can't, my kids old enough to see now. Back when I was on the bathroom floor, they couldn't see. They old enough to know mama is not good. So I hid it. But God, that's all I can say, God. But God.
Wow.
But
I,
God.
I appreciate your transparency in that, on a number of different levels. One, just to share the story in general, because I think, people don't always understand if you've ever gone through a divorce, it's different than just a traditional I quit you,
Hmm.
I break up with you, we don't go together no more. It's
Exactly.
different, when we talk about the two becoming one. The best way have been able to describe divorce to people is like it literally feels like, even though we know physically that's not what's happening, it literally feels like you're being ripped apart
Yes. And
from that other person.
definitely.
Even if it was a negative situation, it still just feels
Exactly.
that ripping feeling, and the void that you feel, and then like you said, that sense of failure, and I got to start over, and this wasn't supposed to be how it played out. This was supposed to be a one and done. To death do you part. It was supposed to be the happily ever after.
Exactly.
Now it wasn't, and then you add the element of what you have, which is I was a praying wife. I'm anointing. I'm praying. I'm doing everything that I think I'm supposed to be doing, and yet
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting the response out of this. So then it makes you question, what did I do wrong to deserve this? Where have I
Yes.
gone astray with that? So those are all of the questions that begin to circulate in your mind. But we do know, with those of us who know God, you have a relationship with God. I do as well. Sometimes God has to, in His own way, break us down to our lowest of low
Yes.
to get our attention, to get us to be
Yes.
focused on Him and leaning into Him. Because prior to that, a lot of times what we're making the mistake of is we're trying to do it all on our own. We're trying to
Yeah.
carry all the weight, all the burden. We're trying to fix stuff. You,
Exactly.
you were trying to fix. You were doing it in the right intentions, prayer
Yeah.
and anointing and all. But
Yes.
God was saying, I didn't ask you to fix this. I
Yes.
allowed you to go through this on purpose because there was a bigger meaning to come out of it. But yet, I didn't ask you to fix it. I got this. I'm just waiting on you to lean on me, lean into me, and let me do what I do. Let me be God all by myself, and
Yes.
you just follow that lead. And so yeah, I totally get what you're saying and how traumatic that can be. And then of course when you have children involved and you're wanting to be protective of them, and even in some instances maybe even use them as a crutch to say I'm staying in this because I don't want them to be without the two parent household. I don't want them to be without the financial
Exactly.
provisions. I don't want them to be without this. When
Exactly.
as if God can't. which I'm sure he did for you. When you did walk away, he made sure you found a place to stay. He made sure you had
Yeah,
some money in your pocket. He made
I
sure
know
you
him
had
as a
some food on the
provider.
table. He still provided. So he showed you
Yes,
I was going to have you regardless. I just didn't want you to stay in a situation that wasn't good for you, and I was just waiting
exactly.
for you patiently to just come to me and ask for the help. Let me do what I do. So
Exactly.
that's a powerful story for you to share. And again, somebody's gonna be blessed by that because there are women who are in similar
Exactly.
abusive situations, not knowing where to go, where to turn to, how to walk away. And in many cases, some of them can, of course, be God fearing women, believe in the Lord, study the word, do all of
Yeah.
the things that are associated with a Christian lifestyle, and yet going through this turmoil, just like
Right.
you had to go through. So that's what makes your story so impactful and so powerful and so necessary to tell, because we just don't know what listening ear needs to hear that. Somebody who's on the
Yeah.
edge, ready to throw in the towel, ready to give up. And you might have just given them that hope to give God a try, to hang in there and keep fighting,
Yes.
keep persevering. Don't give up. Don't consider this to be the
Yes.
end. Don't look at yourself as being a failure. Or, don't that you've let yourself down, you've let people down, you've let
Exactly.
God down. And then one more thing I want to say to what you just said, before we move forward. I like the fact that you said I was angry with God, because sometimes people feel like they can't be mad at God, like as if God is going to be offended or he's going to
Yes.
come down on you with a wrath because you're angry. He understands our human condition, and sometimes
Yes.
because we don't understand what's going on and why it's going on,
Yes.
we get angry, and God
Mm-hmm.
knows that, and He's okay with us being angry. He wants us to keep it real with Him and say, "You mad? Okay, be mad. Tell me how mad you
Yeah.
are. Put it all
Mm-hmm.
out on the table. Let me know. I want to know. I'm not offended.
Right.
Just tell me what it is." So I think that's important
Right.
too. That you don't have to sugarcoat around God. If He's supposed to be our Father, we say it formally our Father, but you could say it even casually. If He's supposed to be our Daddy, I should be able to go to my
Right.
dad and just say how I feel. And I can say how I feel and still be respectful, but I can
Right.
still express my emotions and my frustrations and then allow him to comfort me as a father should. The
Yes.
only difference is he's a father of all fathers, and he can do it in a
Right.
way that no other father can. But nevertheless, he
Exactly.
still wants that connection between father and, in this case, father and daughter, just as he would with
Yes.
father and son. So keep it real. Say what you feel. Put it all out there. So I thought that was powerful that you said that as well. So as we move forward with this, when you go through adversity, whether it's the stuff that you dealt with your marriage and other situations, or just adversity in general, um, I'm curious to know, and I'm want you to share with our audience as well, is if you have a particular routine or regiment that you like to follow that works for you whenever if adversity is knocking on your door today and here's something else I got to deal with, whatever that something else is, what is your process that you like to go through to deal with those situations in a healthy way, but nevertheless in a way that allows you to navigate through it so you can eventually overcome it? What does that process look like for you?
Well, as I said, I'm gonna be transparent. After all that happened to me in my life, God isolated me. So for some reason, it wasn't a chosen isolation. He pushed me into that place because there were some things that he needed to finish within me. So after the isolation, I my relationship with God, it changed. It got better. It was on a different level. It was more intimate. So the process would probably be was more of, just reading my word, um, praying, being around positive people.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, that makes a difference because if you have negative girlfriends and they're like, oh, da, 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 that would definitely not help you with anything that's traumatic in your life. I remember one time that I had a brother that was killed by the police a couple of years back, right at the time, around the time that I was going through a divorce,
Mm.
around that time. And I remember I was crying so hard, and I was like, and someone in the church told me, they said, but you know God, so why are you crying that hard? And I was like so hurt. I was so mad at them for saying that to me because I'm like, even Jesus wept. So sometimes you have to cry to get it all out. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you really do just have to close the door if you need to scream, cry, get it all out, and then come back to God and say, "Hey, I'm at your feet." And that's what I did. When I got from that place of just being angry, I
Mm.
went to God's feet and I asked, "What would you have me to do? Like, what am I not doing? What did I should be doing? No longer my will, but I want it to be your will." And I didn't realize when I said that, when I finished saying that, that all those years I was doing my will. And so he brought it to my attention to say, "You listen to what you said,
Mm.
not your will, but my will." And so from that point on, I began to pray more. Like I said, praying and just putting myself around positive people, allowing God to heal me. And one of the things he told me, never to hold back your real feelings. Like even when you telling your testimony, tell it. If you felt this way, tell it, because it's a lot of people feeling that same exact way, but they don't want to be told that, especially when they say they know him.
Right.
But today I can say I know God. It ain't
Mm.
from what my grandmama said.
Hmm.
I wish what I learned in church growing up. I have a real authentic relationship with God because I learned that He was a provider. I learned that He's a healer. I learned that He's a protector. All in this time after my divorce. And it all started with just being, say, here, I give this to you. I can't do
Mm.
it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I love that. Again, we're emphasizing about letting your emotions get out, and I'm always bothered by people who want to tell you how to grieve, or putting a clock on your
Yeah.
grieving. Oh, you should be over this by now. Whether
Yeah.
it's been X number of days, weeks, or months, or whether it's because you are a child of God, you're not supposed to feel. You're just supposed to turn it over, and that should be just it. And while the turning over is a
Hmm.
part of the process, as you stated, even Jesus wept. So if it
Yeah.
was okay for Jesus to weep, why would it not be okay for me to weep
Exactly.
about whatever it is that's pressing on my heart, whatever it is that I'm dealing with? So I think that's very impactful that you state that, because it's so necessary. The key is that we just don't get stuck in that
Yes.
moment.
That's it.
Yeah, you can be angry, sad, frustrated, annoyed, all of that. Have that initial pouring out of
Yes.
yourself, purging. But then after you catch your breath, calm down a little bit, then that's where you just say, okay, now that I got that off my chest, God, what would you have for me to do? How am I going to work my way through this? I'm feeling a little empty right now. I need you to feel me. I need you to my
Yes.
my vision is a little blurred right now because of all that's going on. I need you to be my eyes. I need you to be my ears. I need you to surround me. You talked about being in the right circle of people around you. Surround me with people who mean well by me, who are not being
Yes.
messy and or giving me bad advice, or doing
Exactly.
anything that would take me away from you, and get me to thinking worldly instead of godly. Let me
Hmm.
lean into that kind of thing. And when you start to open up with that, God, as you know, God just
Yes.
begins to move. And one more thing,
Exactly.
something that you said that resonated with me, was you talked about how when you're in those moments of prayer and you're asking God, or you're asking God, what should you do, or you're kind of talking it through, and you realize that in the midst of the very prayer that you're asking, you're actually answering the question while you're asking it.
Answer.
Like we talked about,
Yes.
what would your will be? I want it to be your will, not my will. And then all of a sudden, ding, oh wait a minute,
Yeah.
that's what I was doing. I was doing that was
Yes.
There's the answer.
Yes.
But see, God, until you know what that experience feels like, only then do you truly understand it. But I've been there with that,
Yes.
on multiple occasions, where I'm sitting there talking to God, yeah, and I know this, that, the other, and then all of a sudden I didn't answer my own question, well, in the middle of the prayer.
Exactly.
you know I'm seeking an answer, and then
Exactly.
he gave it to me, but he spoke it through my own mouth. You
Exactly.
already knew the answer. You just needed to
Hmm.
talk it through with me, so you can hear it for yourself. And then it's like, oh, okay,
Exactly.
I get it. Like the aha moment, the light bulb comes on. It's like, okay,
Yes.
okay. So yeah, I totally connect with you on that, when you said that. So if you had a chance, to when you think back of everything that you've been through, all the challenges, all of the trials, the tribulations of life, if you had an opportunity to speak to that younger version of yourself, going through, abusive relationships and marriages and things like that, or just even think about some woman who might be listening, to this podcast, and is in that situation right now. She's in the very dark place that you were in, what would be your words of encouragement that you would share with somebody like that, or the younger version of you that you wish you knew, that you think would help that individual be able to navigate such a situation better, and just, just be in the right mind and the right headspace to properly, again, overcome what is otherwise a very challenging and daunting situation? What would those words of wisdom be from you?
Ooh, well, I would say you remember earlier I said that I went to church because of my grandmother. It was kind of like go. I would encourage to my younger self. I wish I would have took that relationship with God seriously then.
Mm-hmm.
I think I wasted a lot of time in the world doing things, and I had to learn His way. I mean, that way, instead of in the will of God. One thing that God told me was when you're not in my will, that means you're outside of my will. That means that you don't have the protection of the insurance. You have my grace, you have my mercy, but those things that I have for you, you can't know what they are. So I wish that I would have known earlier how much He loves me, you
Mm-hmm.
know and I think that would have prevented me from going through a lot of that craziness that I did in relationships and stuff, trying to find a man to validate me or to love me. I think if I would have had that relationship early on, it would have prevented a lot of things. But I do thank God for the things that I went through because it made me a better person. However, I think that if a woman is going through something like that, God is real. I tell anybody, like, God is so real. Like, I can't even. He's so real, like, and he's so good. Like, he cannot lie. He said he'll do it. He's gonna do it. So, if you're in a marriage, and one of the things when I was in my marriage, being in the church, you don't supposed to get divorced. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
unheard of. Like, you getting divorced, like you kind of looked at like, wow, she getting divorced. Like, what's wrong with her? It was like they felt like it was something wrong with me. But I would say, listen to God, listen to him. I heard it for after leaving that marriage, but I thank God because today I have the real deal peace. I
Mm.
have peace and I have joy that I didn't experience all those years. I gave my life to Christ when I was 30 years old myself. It wasn't, from childhood. So I made a decision. I gave my life to Christ at the age of 30. And I I thank God that I've learned today that, He loves me. So if anybody going through anything, that whether it's, domestic relationship, that domestic violent relationship, abuse or whatever, God is real. Don't stay in it. First of all, when I tell you to stay in a domestic violent relationship, because I really feel like if I would have stayed, I would end up dead. I don't care how they tell you they're not gonna do it no more. It end up happening again. So I would tell them to leave those type of relationship. And if you're hurting, it's okay to hurt. It's okay to hurt. God really do feel our hurt. He feels it. And if you trust him, not your will, but his
Mm-hmm.
will, he will provide. He would comfort. He would protect. He would do all those things. He'll be a provider. He would do all of them. So that is what I would tell anybody that went through any of the situation, or not just my situation I went through, but anything in life, whatever you may go through, I put God first. And I didn't always do it. It wasn't always popular to me to do it. So today I would say put God first.
There you go. There you
Trust them.
go.
Trust them.
Yeah,
Gotta
and
trust them.
I love the fact that you emphasized, truly understanding how much God loves you, that you wish you would have known, and took that
Mm,
relationship much more seriously, because, Bible teaches us that God is love. And so if I know
yes.
that God is love and I'm trusting in that and I'm believing in that, when I start entering into relationships, whether it's an intimate relationship with boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife,
Yes.
or if even if it's just relationships with people I call friends, or things of
Hmm.
that nature, if I know what the blueprint looks like of what love means, then I'm able to determine right away if that's what I'm getting from this person that I have
Exactly.
an interest in. And if I'm seeing signs that contradict to that, then that's my cue. Don't even start
Yes.
getting
Don't even
engaged in this,
start.
because this is not of God right here. This is not the God example of
No.
what love looks like. So it doesn't matter how fine he is or she is. It doesn't matter how much money
Don't.
they have. It doesn't matter
No.
if you, there's a many woman right now living in a beautiful home, driving nice cars, wearing fancy
That was me.
clothes, living the life. But
That was me.
and on the outside, people are even jealous and envious of you, wishing that they
Yes.
and they had your life, not knowing that
Have
when you
no
go
clue.
inside the home at night, that you're worried, is this going to be a night where I can perhaps go to bed and not get hit, or is this going to be a night
Hmm.
that I'm gonna be in a fight? People on the outside don't know that, but yet they're
Right.
clamoring and wanting what you have, not understanding that behind that mask, I'm hurting
Hmm.
and I'm going through some stuff. My life is in danger. And so that's why it's
Right.
so important to understand that love component, because then we won't be so quick to get caught up with the things of the world that don't matter.
It
Looks
don't.
fade, money
Right.
fades,
It does.
all the stuff, junk, and things in the world, they fade. They can go away in an instant,
Hmm.
But what you talked about, but that peace, that
That
joy,
piece.
that's
Woo.
different. And when you're getting it
Woo.
from him, that's a different
It's
vibe.
a.
That's a different feel. That's a
Woo.
different
Yes, it
energy,
is.
and it's unshakable. It's not something I lose. I can't drop
No.
that somewhere and misplace it.
No.
It's no, it's there. So when I know it's there not only when things are good, but even when stuff
Yes.
is not good, I'm
Right.
okay. I can actually withstand it because of the peace, because of the joy that's
Yes.
there. I'm good to go. I'm not even pressed. Yeah, it may be inconvenient. It may be,
Yeah.
a little annoying, but I'm okay. I'm not gonna lose any
Yes.
sleep. I'm not I'm not losing my appetite. I'm not
Woo.
endangering myself. I'm good because I know who's in control.
Exactly.
I know who's running the show, and I trust in that. His record is undefeated. you know,
Undefeated.
so it's like I'm good. I'm good with that. So that's what makes what you said
Yes.
so powerful, and what we want people to understand, about that relationship is so important. And it's
It
that
is.
relationship dictates how you handle all other relationships.
Everything.
Again, intimate, friends, family, job, your relationships with your
Hmm.
finances, wherever you got a relationship with, or whomever you got a relationship with, if God is not connected to it, then that should be your first signal as to maybe why there's a problem,
Yeah.
why it's not working out. So, good
Yeah.
stuff that you
That is
pointed
so
out
true.
there. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, I do want to have an opportunity to, of course, to celebrate you, to acknowledge, to affirm, to love on you about, what it is that you got going on in your life right now, in terms of, you got any, any new projects, any new things you're working on, anything that's happened lately that you just want to put out there that we can celebrate and, and give a shout out to, whatever that is. Please do share that with us at this time.
Yeah. So as I was saying, I'm a life coach. So how that arrived was all I've been through, just being in ministry. 'Cause,
Okay.
I was in ministry. Well, I'm still in ministry. Being married and dealing with someone that's a narcissist, just self care and self love. So that's how I became a life coach. So that's kind of what I'm doing is just doing that, and I'm writing, which I love to
Okay.
write, and I got away from that. So a lot of this, God is just unveiling all kinds of stuff in my life. Like I'm working on a prayer book because I'm really big on prayer. I know that prayer really do work. So I'm working on a prayer book, which I plan on having it out by before Christmas, but I'm not finished just
Okay.
quite yet. So I'm working on that as well. And I have a podcast. I'm on a podcast called Black and Figuring Out, which airs on every Monday night at 7 p.m.
Awesome.
That's pretty much it.
That is that. Hey, that's great. And if anybody is interested in your life coach services, or maybe even being a part of your podcast or anything of that nature, what is the best way for them to contact you and get more information about anything that you're into and that you're doing?
Well, there's two ways you can actually on Facebook. You can go to Tauren D. That's the
Hmm.
name of my Facebook page for to get in contact with me for podcast, well, both podcast and for life coach. But my number is 817-380-8155, and that's for both, for the
Okay.
podcast and for life coach.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I will tell you, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Like I said,
Thank
we
you. I
just
enjoyed it.
yes, I've absolutely enjoyed it as well. I know we're in the early stages of getting to know each other, and so you being on the program here today on the podcast has just been a blessing to me, and I know it's going to be a blessing to anybody who has the opportunity to partake in listening to your story and your journey. It's clear that God is all over you and in your life, and that you have a love for Him, and that you're really trying to allow Him to use you in a mighty way to impact, to serve,
Yes,
to empower, and that's what it's all about. And
it
I'm so
is.
thankful that we would have loved for you to have not had to go through some of the rough patches, but you learn over time that those things are
Yes,
sometimes those things are necessary. They are. I shouldn't even say
they
sometimes.
are.
They're a necessary part of our growth and our development. There's a reason. There's a purpose that they happen, and I'm glad that instead of allowing it to defeat you, you with God being by your side, of course, leveraged that
Yes.
thing. You leveraged it and flipped it, and now
Gotta
you're doing.
praise. Woo.
Yes, you're now taking your pain, your challenges, your stories, and you're pouring that into helping other people through your life coaching,
Mm,
through your podcast, through whatever means that God is using you for. And that's a powerful thing, and that's what we need to understand, that it's not about it being
exactly.
a good experience or a bad experience. Just it's an experience. Let's just
It's
leave
an
it at that
experience.
and take it for what it is, and know who's in charge, who's in control, and just let Him guide us through that. And we just embrace it and lean on Him and trust that
Exactly.
He's going to carry us through the way He needs
Let
to
him
carry
have
us
his
through.
way.
Let Him have His way. Like I said, His will, not my will. So
Exactly.
that's wonderful. So, to my listeners, if you enjoyed the content on today's podcast, I do of course encourage you to subscribe, share, like, comment. What we're all about here at Blessings in the Street podcast is about the empowering and the encouraging, the impacting and changing lives, sharing our stories, being transparent, being vulnerable, hoping that something that is said, even if it's just a brief snippet of the entire podcast, that makes a difference in your life, to let you know that
Right.
there is a better way, there is hope, that there is a possibility for you to be redeemed, to rebound, to reset from whatever challenges or anything that like of the such that you have in your life. That it all is possible. It is all possible, especially when you know that God is in control, and that
Yes.
relationship, having that relationship with Him, makes all the difference in the world. I promise you, it's the best decision that you'll ever make in your life if you haven't
Yes,
already made
indeed.
it. And we don't always understand why things happen the way they do, why He allows what He allows, but again, because He is who He is, you can trust, you can guarantee that it's always
Yes.
going to be for the good. That's why we count it all good. We count it all joy. The tough, as well as the smooth and easy. We accept all of it because we know who it's coming from, and He always knows what's best for us. So, with that said, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, be blessed, take care, keep fighting, and understand that God is in control and He has your back. Much love.